So let's get started. Node.js was originally written in 2009 by Readable. The initial release was supported only Linux, but in the later years of Node.js, it also started supporting Windows operating system and Mac OS also. Now, its development was led by, of course, Readable, and later the development and maintenance was sponsored by Joyent. Joyent was his employer. Now let's see what is Node.js. So Node.js is an open source cross-platform runtime environment for developing server-side web application. So normally you would link JavaScript with client-side web applications. But with Node.js, you can develop server-side applications also. Now Node.js is an evented IO, and this evented IO we will learn in the later videos what is evented IO and how we can use it. Okay. So although Node.js is not a JavaScript framework, many of its basic modules were written in JavaScript, and developers can write new modules in JavaScript. The runtime environment interprets JavaScript using Google's V8 JavaScript engine, which is also the JavaScript engine behind Chrome, which is a web browser, which makes it really fast. Now Node.js is released under MIT license, so it's a cross-platform open source framework. So let's go next. Now what Node.js is not. So as I already told you, Node.js is not a web framework. It's a server-side web application, right? So you can write server-side web applications with Node.js, not the client side, right? Node.js is not for beginners. So whenever you are starting Node.js, you need to have basic understanding of how JavaScript works, mainly object-oriented JavaScript and evented JavaScript. So you need to have some knowledge of JavaScript, but don't worry, I will start with very basic level, so you will be able to understand. And most of the time servers, if you think about servers, you may link servers as a multi-threaded application, but Node.js is not a multi-threaded application. It uses the concept of asynchronous IO, which we will also see in the later videos. Now what is unique about Node.js? So JavaScript is used in client side, but Node.js puts JavaScript on the server side, as I have already told you, thus making a communication between client and server will happen in the same language. So the learning curve for you will not be so steep, because if you know JavaScript, you can write the front end and the back end of your web application both in JavaScript, right? Now servers are normally thread based, as I would have already told you, but Node.js is event based. Node.js serves each request in an evented loop that can able to handle simultaneous requests. So Node.js is not a multi-threaded application. Okay, so it only have one thread which uses event. And the last, this is also, I have already told you that Node.js program are executed by V8 JavaScript engine, the same engine behind the Google Chrome browser also. Now why you want to learn Node.js? Because Node.js is really fast, it can handle tons of concurrent requests, and it's written in JavaScript, which means you can use the same code on server side and client side. So this is the brief introduction about Node.js, and from the next video I will start explaining how you can install Node.js and how we can write our first code for creating our first Node.js server. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners. In this video we will see how we can download and install Node.js on our Windows operating system. So let's get started. First of all, open your favorite browser and search for Node.js download, and the first link which will appear here will be nodejs.org, which is the official link. So you can just click this link here, okay, and in here you will be able to see different kind of installations, but on the Node.js homepage, so when you click this icon here, you will see the two versions for Windows. One is the LTS version, which is a long term service version, right? And one is the current version. So we are interested in current version, so I'm going to install this one. But if you want to install this long term version, which will be available for a long time, then you can just install this one. So I'm going to click this option, and the file will be downloaded, which is about 12 megabytes. So I'm going to save it, and let's save it somewhere. Okay, so once this file is saved, we are going to just install it. So just click your MSI file. So the extension of this file will be .msi. So just click this and then start installing the Node.js, right? Now Node.js installation on Windows is really easy, and you cannot get an easy installation than this installation. So first of all, this kind of wizard will start. You just need to click next here and accept terms, license and conditions, and then click next. This is the location where Node.js will be installed. So if you don't have any good reason to change it, just leave it as default and then click next. Now in here, these are the things that will be installed in with the Node.js. So the Node.js runtime, npm package manager, which is really important for developing Node.js applications, online documentations, and the path. So this Node.js path will be installed or configured on your Windows operating system, so you can start Node.js using your command line. Okay, so just click next here, and once you click next, you just need to click this install button to start the installation. Now the installation may take few seconds to few minutes depending upon the configuration of your Windows operating system. So just wait for this process to complete, and once the installation will complete, we will go to the next step. Okay, so now the installation of Node.js is successfully completed on my Windows operating system, and I just need to click this finish button. Now to know whether Node.js is successfully installed on your system or not, you need to open your command prompt. So just search for command prompt and open your command prompt, and in here you just need to type node -v, which is going to give you the version of Node.js installed, right? So just press enter and it will give you the version of Node.js which you have installed. So it's giving v 6.5.0. This is the same version you can see here when we have downloaded it from the Node.js website, v 6.5.0, right? So we know that Node.js is successfully installed on our system. Now we have also installed npm, which is Node Package Manager, which with this Node.js installer. And Node Package Manager is really important in developing Node applications, and I will illustrate what npm is and how it works in details in the later videos. But in this video we will just check whether it's successfully installed or not. So just write npm for Node Package Manager, -v for knowing the version of it, right? So npm -v, and hopefully it will also give you the version of npm installed. Okay, so now we know that node is installed successfully on our system, and npm is also installed on our system. So now we can start building our for example, hello world application. So just to check, you just need to write node in order to start working with node. So just write node and press enter, which will give you this kind of command line interface. And in here you can just write for example console.log, and in the brackets, so in the brackets you just need to write for example hello node. So just write hello node. Okay, and now you can press enter, and it's going to print out hello node, and then this undefined message, and then you know that node is perfectly working on your system. Now let's check this node in a little bit better way. So what we want to do now is I'm going to just close this command prompt, and I will once again go to the Node.js website, and now this time I'm going to go here which says about tab. So just click about tab here, and in here you will see the basic bare bone code to get started with node, which is this code. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to a folder. Just go and create any folder in which you want to create your Node.js project, for example, and then here I'm going to create a JavaScript file. So I'm going to let's create a JavaScript file, and I'm going to name it as app.js, for example. So just write app.js and press enter. We are going to see how we can build our Node.js application using some editor better than for example normal editor on Windows or Linux. So this we will see in the later videos, but for now let's use for example, I have Notepad++ for JavaScript, so I will open this app.js file in Notepad++, but you can use any editor of your choice for now, right? And then I'm going to once again go to this page, and I will just copy all the code from here. Just copy all the code, and then I'm going to paste it here. Okay, and then just save this code. Okay, so just copy and paste this code and save this code, and then I'm going to minimize everything once again. So my code is saved, and now I want to open the command prompt in this folder. And the easiest way to do is you can do cd to this path, and it will be okay. But the easiest way is to just press your shift button. So just press shift button and then right click on this folder, and then you will see this option which says open command window here. So just click this option, and you can see we are directly in this directory in the command line. So we are in the samples directory, which is here itself, right? Now in here what we can do is we just need to give this command. So just give node command and then the file name. So file name is app.js in our case. So this file we have created right now, right? So just write app.js here and press enter. Okay, now if you will notice here, it's giving this message that we can open 127.0.0.1, which is the local host on our PC, colon this port. So on port 3000 of the local host we can see this server running. So I'm going to open my browser once again, and in here I will just give the same address which was printed here. So 127.0.0.1 and then port 3000, right? which is the same address which is printed here, this address. Okay, and then press enter, and you can see hello world is printed here. So you know that your Node.js server is working perfectly fine on your Windows operating system, and you know that you have installed Node.js perfectly on your Windows operating system. Hello guys, in this video I'm going to show you how we can download and install Visual Studio Code on our Windows operating system. Visual Studio Code is a code editor on which you can edit or write different kind of codes, for example PHP, JavaScript, HTML, C++, and many other languages. So let's see how we can download and install Visual Studio Code. So just open your favorite browser and search for Visual Studio Code or VS Code, and the first link which will appear here will be code.visualstudio.com. Just click this link, and then you will be able to see this kind of green button here. You just need to click download Visual Studio Code, and then you will be able to save this kind of executable file, which is VS Code setup -table.exe file, and you can save it anywhere, wherever you want in your computer. And depending upon the speed of your internet, you can see it can take a minute or so, because it's a 30 megabyte file. So just wait for the download to complete, and then we will start installing it. Okay, so now the executable file is downloaded on my system, so I can just run it. So just click the exe file which you have downloaded, and then start installing Visual Studio Code. Now installing Visual Studio Code is really easy, so you just need to click next, accept license terms and condition, click next. This is the location where code will be installed on your system, click next, and then it's a select start menu folder. So this is the start menu folder, and if you don't have the correct reason to change it, don't change it and leave it as default, and click next. And here you can see it will create a desktop icon for you, register code as an editor for support for files, and add to the path. So environment variable also you can it will be able to set by itself. Okay, and then click next and click install, and it will be really fast installation, so it will not take much time to install Visual Studio Code. And you can see it's installing and extracting all the files, and then in few seconds it will be installed on your system. Now it's also going to set the environment path variables, so whenever you want to open Visual Studio Code using your for example command line, it will be able to do it. So now you can see the code is installed on my system, so I can just leave this checkbox checked, which will launch the Visual Studio Code, and click finish. And now the Visual Studio Code will be launched on my on my system. Now I will also see this welcome screen and getting started. So if you are interested in learning more, you can see there is ton of information given on their website. So you see top extension for C#, Python, C++, debugger for Chrome, and many other options are here, right? Now let's see how we can open the Visual Studio Code from the command line. So here you can create any file. For example, I will create a new file. You can see it will create a new file, or if I want to save this file, I can just save it by going to the file and then save as or save. So for example, I will do save as, and I will say, for example, test.html, right? And now I can just type. So it's a really good editor which has IntelliSense, so I can just say HTML and press double tab, and it's going to complete the tags for me, right? Once again, for example, head and double tab, and it's going to complete this. Once again, the body, for example, so I can just write body and double tab, and it's completing my tags for me. Okay, and then you have the option to format your code. So right click and then just click format code, and it's going to format your code for you also, right, out of the box. Now if you want, so I'm going to close my code editor, and for example I can just open a command line, and here when I type code, it's going to open the code for me. So you can see it's going to open the code, right? And for example, if you want to open the code and open your project using code, you just need to go to the folder in which your project is. For example, you have some Node.js project, just browse to that project, and then you can just type code and dot, and it's going to open the folder for you. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners. Now in this video I'm going to show you how you can create your first Hello World project using Node.js from start to end. So when we were installing Node.js, we have seen how we can just copy and paste the code and create a simple Node.js project. But we will see in this video what this code means and how we can create a very simple Hello World Node.js server. So let's get started. I will be using Windows for this, but you can do this same on your Linux operating system or Mac OS. Plus I'm using the Visual Studio Code for editing my code, or as an editor, but you are free to use any other code editor which you please to use. So what I'm going to do first is I will just open the folder in which I want to create my project. So for example, this is the folder where I want to create a project. On Windows, simple thing is you can just press the shift button and right click on it, and you can open the command line in this folder by this method. So just press shift, right click, and just press this option which says open command window here, which is going to open the command window in this folder, right? Now here what we need to do is we will create first of all for example a folder which will we will name it as Hello World, for example. So I will just write mkdir Hello World, or let it be hello, right, and press enter. This is going to create this folder, right? And then we will go inside this folder, so cd hello, and we are inside this folder. So let's go inside this folder, and in here what we will do is we are going to create a file, JavaScript file, for example. So I will do this by using Visual Studio Code. So if you have followed my last video in which I have shown you how to install Visual Studio Code, you can just type code here and then type dot and press enter, which is going to open Visual Studio Code in this folder. So it's going to open Visual Studio Code inside. It will be opening this folder also for you, right? Now inside this folder, let's create a file. So I'm going to create a new file here, and I'm going to name it as, so let me save this file as, for example, app.js file. Okay, press enter, and this is going to create your app.js file. Now let's start writing some code. So first thing here we need here is var http is equal to require. So just write require, and we need to require a module. So I will tell you what the module is. So we just need to write http here, and a module is something like a library. So it does what classes do in object-oriented programming is, so it's, for example, whatever you do in C++, you just include a library, inbuilt library, for example IOStream or some other libraries, or what you import in Java, you import some libraries in order to work with those libraries in Java. Similarly, node modules are the way to import some already built code in Node.js, and we can use this code. So there is such module in Node.js which is already inbuilt module, which is HTTP, and we need to create the instance of this module using require. So require is like include in C++ or import in for example Java, right? So after requiring this HTTP module, we created an instance of HTTP, right? Now the next step is we use the create an instance, and we will call a method called create server to create an instance of this server, right? So just use for example HTTP, and then we will call a method called create server. So just write create and server, something like this, okay? And inside these brackets we pass one function. Now in JavaScript, if you know, we can make an anonymous function. Let's create a function here, and then we will see what is an anonymous function. So for example, I will just write var, and for example I will just write the name of the function, so foo for example, right? And then I will just write function, and we don't need to give any name to this function because we want this function to be anonymous. And we will pass two argument here, response and request. So first will be for request for example, and second argument is the response. So you can give any name to these argument. I'm giving it according to the usage which we will pass here as an argument. So you can do something like this, or you can use a full name, for example request or response. It doesn't really matter, right? And then you can just create this function. So this kind of function doesn't have any name, so they are called anonymous function. And then you can pass these functions here, right? So this will be your function you are passing, or instance of function you are passing inside this create server method. Now most common usage of this kind of anonymous function, we don't do it something like this, but instead of this passing the instance, you can directly paste it something like this. So you will mostly see this kind of code in Node.js. So just pass this anonymous function inside these brackets, and you will be good to go. So there are both the ways are correct for you, right? Now inside this function we will just take a request, and the simple thing is to send the response, right? So first of all, on which port or on which IP you are going to run your server, for example. So there is a function, so just go outside this function, and just call a function called listen. So just write listen function, and whatever number you will write here, this will be your port. For example, you will write 3000 here. This will be the port on which your server will run. So it will run on localhost obviously, and it will run localhost 3000 port. Okay, it will listen on 3000 port. You can do something like 8081. Whatever port is available on your computer, you can use this for port. So for example, I use 3000. And the next thing here is we will take our response variable. So just use this response variable, and then call a method called end here. Okay, and this is the basic thing you need to do in order to reply whatever client is whenever client is requesting from a GET request, HTTP request, for example, right? So we will send, for example, hello world here. So just write hello, or hello node will be more appropriate, right? And if you want, you can just give this line break here also. So this is it. This is the simplest server you can make using Node.js. And if you want, you can just log show the user that you have created this server on this port. So you can just write for example console.log, and then you can give the information. So for example, I can write server is running on for example 127.0.0.1 port 3000. Okay, and it will run on this port, and obviously you need to write http. I hope you know what this is. So http:// something like this, right? And if you want, you can do something like this also, and then save your code and open your command line once again, and you can see it has this file, and you can run this file using node and then the file name, which is app.js. Press enter, and you can see it will give you this kind of alert. You can just allow on your Windows operating system, which is okay, and it shows this message which we want to display from here. So it's showing this message that the server is running on this port. So let's see, and let's open our browser and let's see if it opens or not. So you can see here this code is running. So our server is running on 127.0.0 colon 3000 on port 3000, and it's printing hello node, right? So this is the basic code for the server. So what we need to create a server: an instance of HTTP module, and then this method which takes an anonymous function which have two arguments, request and reply, or response, request and response. And whenever request comes on this port, you just reply with this message, which is hello node, for example. Now to inspect this code, you can just right click here, and you can just click inspect element here. On Chrome also, I think this is the same thing, and you go to network here, so something like this here, network. And then when we reload our server, for example, you can see there is a request, get request, and it's requesting this IP and this port, is sending get request, and in the reply we are getting the status code 200, which is okay. Whenever you request on get, you are supposed to get the 200 okay reply, which is a correct reply from the server, right? Now this is the default, so this reply 200 will be sent automatically, but if you want to be sure, you can just write response dot write head. So just write write head, and then it takes a few arguments. So first is the reply code, which is 200, which is also a status code in HTTP. If you don't know what is this 200, just search for HTTP status codes, right? And you will see what this means is. And then the next argument will be an object which contains two arguments. One is the content type, so just write content minus type, and content type will be what kind of reply you want, or you want the client to receive. So content type, let's say it's text and plain, so something like this, not this but plain. Okay, and then close it. Okay, and then once again we will kill our server, and once again we will run our server, and then we will refresh our request, and it's the same, no change here, but this time we are making sure that we are sending 200 on the client from the server using this code. If you, for example, send 201 from here and save it, and once again run your server, so let's kill and run our server once again, and once again refresh our code, you see you get the status code 201, but this means different. So this is not a good practice. Whenever you are using get request, you don't want to send 201, but because the meaning of 201 is a little bit different, which is generally used in post requests. So just search for HTTP status codes and you will be good to go. Okay, so this is how you can write a basic server using Node.js. Hello guys, in this video I'm going to show you how you can download and install a command line tool for Windows which is better than the native Windows command line tool, which is called Cmder. Now if you have used command line tool on Windows ever, it looks like this. So I am using Windows 8 and it looks like this. And if you are a developer or if you want to use command line for your work, then using this command line tool is not satisfactory, I would say. For example, you are building a node application and you need to run node commands here, and this works fine, but for a developer they want more than this kind of boring command line tool. Now you can say Windows 10 has already been there and their command line tool is little bit better, but it's not so much better that we can love it, for example. So let's see what command line tool I'm going to show you, and let's see what's the difference between them. So what we are going to do is we are going to download and install a free command line tool which is called Cmder, and we say it Cmder tool. Okay, so just type Cmder Cmder, and the first link which will appear here will be Cmder.net, right? So just click this link, and this tool is free command line tool, so you can use it for free. And in here you can see the first look of it. It'll look like this, and to download it you can just click this download button. Now there are two versions of it. One is the download mini version, which is 6 megabyte, and if you are interested in the whole functionality, then you can download this 80 megabyte download installable file. Okay, so it's a zip file, so it's not an installer, it's a zip file. So you just need to extract it, and you just need to run the command line tool from there. Okay, so let me save this zip file, and once this zip file will be downloaded, it will take around 1 minute on my PC. It can take more or less time depending upon the speed of your computer, and once it's downloaded we will see how it works. Okay, so now the download of this zip file is complete, and I have already extracted this zip file. This zip file will look like this, so you just need to extract it in the folder of your choice. Okay, after extracting it you will see this executable file which says Cmder.exe. You just need to double click it. Very simple stuff, and I'm going to minimize everything, and by the meantime it will start. Okay, now here you can see unlock and continue command and visit home page and exit, and it says that some of the DLLs are missing. You don't need to worry about them. You can just say ignore and continue for now. Okay, and then just skip this version for now. Okay, and now it will open this command line tool, and you can see when you start this command line tool, the difference between these two command line tools, right? So when at the time when you open it, it will look like this, very sleek, and you will love it from the first step itself. You can follow or execute any command which you can run on Windows, and even which you can run on your Linux or Unix command line tool. For example, ls minus l, and list all the files and the permissions of your files and folders, right? Or cd or mkdir, or many command line commands it can execute. And the best thing what I like about this command line tool is, for example, if you want to open two command line or command prompts, what you need to do is you need to open the command prompt to two terminals for two command line commands if you want to run in parallel, right? For example, in case of Mongo, you need to run the Mongo daemon in background, and then you need to execute the Mongo shell itself, right? And in that case you need to open two terminals at the same time, and it's not very elegant. In case of Commander, what you need to do is you can just right click on this icon at the top, and you can just say new console. It will give you this option. You can say start, and it will start a new terminal. You can see side by side, right? So you can navigate between them like this. You just need to press these tabs, and you can open multiple terminals like this on Commander. This is the feature which I like. This command line tool also comes with SSH, so if you want to control a remote PC or Linux operating system, it'll help you. So just SSH and whatever is the IP address of your PC, then you will be able to access that PC. So you can see when I press SSH, and it gives me one bunch of the options, right? And yeah, so you can see you can just use it and see if it's good for you, or you want to stick with the old command line tool. It's on your choice, but I am lately using this command line tool and I'm loving it, so I wanted to share with you. So hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners. In the last video we have seen how we can write a small server using Node.js. Now in this video I'm going to show you how you can use Node debugger to debug any problem in Node.js. So what I have done here is, in the last video I've shown you how you can use this create server, and what I have done is I have edited this code a little. So I have created our variable called body, and I have provided some value to this body, right? And then I have created one more variable called content length, and this content length is equal to the length of the body. So just take the body variable and call a method called length on it, and it will give you the length of this body variable which contains this text, right? And in the response.write head I have the status code, and in the last video I have shown you this header which is content type, and there is one more header called content length, and here I'm just passing as a value of the body length. So content length I'm passing here, this variable here. Okay, so basically what it's going to do is it's going to just print the header, and in the header we are going to see the content length also. Now I'm going to just run my app. By the way, I'm using this different terminal this time. This terminal is for Windows, which is called Cmder, Cmder. If you want, you can download it for free from its website. So just search for Cmder, download, and you will be good to go. So node, and then just run your app and press enter, and then I'm going to open my browser and just run this URL which I'm running. So, and when I will go here, so first of all I will just click this option here in the network, which is this one, and there is a variable called content length, and length is 28 right now, right? So this content length is due to this variable, right? Now let's see how we can use Node debugger. So for example, what I want to do is I want to, for example, by mistake I called a wrong method on this body variable. For example, instead of typing length, I typed wrong spelling of length, for example, right? Now this is a mistake. So when I run my code once again and I refresh my browser once again, you can see I don't get any response here. And when I click here, I also don't get the value of this content length. So right now I can see content length is undefined, right? So this is basically an error which is coming from this, but we know that we intentionally type this length wrong, but sometimes you don't know where the error is coming. So for this we can use node debugger. So right now, instead of running node app.js, you just need to write node debug and then app.js. So just add debug in between node and your file name, right? So node debug app.js and press enter, and then it's going to open your code in the node debugger. Now the first thing it'll show you is some lines of code. So I can see first 3 lines of my code in the debugger, right? Now to know the more options about this debugger, you can always type help here and press enter, and it's going to give you the basic commands. So R is for run, CONT or its shortcut is C is for continue, and any XT you can type, or N for the next, or step, or out, or backtrace, or set breakpoint, and many other commands, right? Now for example, somehow I know that the error is coming from here because we are not able to see the body, right? So here we want to set the breakpoint. So this is the line 4, right? So what we can do here is we can call a method called set breakpoint, which is this one, right? So just call this method set breakpoint, and then in here in the brackets you just give the line number. So line number we are interested in here is line number 4, right, which is the declaration of body tag. So just write 4 here and then press enter, and our debugger is stopped here, right? Now in order to continue this program, you can just type CONT or directly C to continue and press enter, and the program will continue, for example. Okay, and then when I just refresh my browser once again, I can see the breakpoint is met. So our breakpoint is at 4, so we are on our breakpoint, right? Now in order to go further, you can type S to step into, or if you want to go next, then you can type next. Okay, so for example I will just type N for the next command, because for next command you can either use N or next itself, right? And press enter, and we are on the next line, right? Once again, when you press enter, it will execute the last command you have executed. So if I don't type anything here, it will just continue implementing or executing the last command you have executed, which is next, right? And let's check the values of these variables, right? So to know the value of these variable, I can type REPL, which is read eval print line, for example, and then press enter, and then we can just type body and then press enter, and it gives the value of the body, which is correct in our case because the body value was this, which is matching in the debugger. So we know that this variable is perfectly fine. Now we go to the next variable, which is content length, and press enter, and it doesn't give any value, so I know that something is wrong here. And then I can see here the spelling mistake is here, and I know the problem is coming from this place, so I can correct this problem, and I can go out of my debugger by typing exit. So press Ctrl C first and then dot exit. Just press dot exit and you are out of your debugger. Okay, and then if you want, you can run your node application normally, and then just refresh your page and you will see this response once again. Right now, if you are using Visual Studio Code also have the option of debugging, right? So if you want to debug using this Visual Studio Code editor, you can go to view, and in the view you can just press debug. So you will be in the debug menu. You can see here there is a green button which is for debug, right? And if you want to start debugging, you just need to press this green button here, and you can see your debugger is running, right? And in here you can even set the breakpoint. So for example, I want to set the breakpoint here on the line 4. You can see this red dot. You just need to click here, and for example, I just refresh my web page. For example, you can see this breakpoint is reached when I press the this refresh button, right? So for example, I will just break this debugging once again, and once again I can for example, I can do this spelling mistake, and once again I can start the debugger, and once again I will refresh my page, for example, and we are here. And then to step to the next step, you can just press this button, which will go to the next step. And if you want to see the value, you just need to hover over this variable and it will show you the value of body. And in here you can see content length is undefined, right? So we know the error is coming from this point, right? And this is how you can debug from Visual Studio Code also. And to break everything from the debugging option, you just need to press this red button. Okay, so this is how you can debug your problems in Node.js. Hey guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners. In this video we will see how we can use the Node.js documentation effectively, and we will see how to use global objects in Node.js. So let's get started. First of all, let's see how to use documentation and where to find documentation. So just open your favorite browser and we will go to the Node.js website, which is nodejs.org. And in nodejs.org website there is a section called docs. So just click this tab here, and here you will find the various documentations on Node.js, different versions of Node.js. And recently the newer version of JavaScript is also released, which is ES6 and beyond. And some of the new concepts are also released under this new version, so you may want to use or see at least these new concepts, and if you want to adopt them, you can do it. But for now I want to show you the Node.js documentation. So in here, for example, I will go to this version, which is LTS, which is long-term version. So I will click this version, which is 6.92.1 at the time of making this video. And in here you can see there is a lot of documentation here. On the left hand side you can see different modules and different type of sections here. So what we have done till now is we have used this HTTP module, which is a built-in module, right? And you can find documentation on this here under HTTP, right? And when you click this and go down a little, first of all, these are all the functions which you can use with this HTTP module. And when you go down, you can see the stability. So stability is the thing which you may want to see before going inside the documentation. And if you see that this module and this documentation is stable, then you can proceed further. So first look at this thing, if it's stable or not for the documentation, and then go down and see whatever you want to see. For example, how to use this get function with HTTP, or how to use even this HTTP module, how to require, and then a lot of documentation you can find here, right? So whenever you are in doubt, just come here and see the documentation. Now let's talk about the global objects. Now in this documentation, when you go to this section which says globals and click here, you will see JavaScript, or in particular Node.js, have some global objects. So if you are coming from front-end JavaScript on the browser side, you may know that there is a global object in JavaScript which is called window object, and under this you may have seen the console object, or set interval, or other functions related to this window object, something like alert, or different kind of global object. In the same way, Node.js also have these global objects which you can use in your Node.js code. And let's see how we can use them. So I will go to my code editor here, and I will remove everything, and let's start from the beginning, for example, and let's see which function we want to use. So for example, I will use this set timeout function here, okay? And as the name suggests, it is used to set some timeout, and it has an argument which is a callback function, and a delay, whatever delay we want to give here, okay? So we can just write set timeout, and then we can call a function. So just write function, and this will be an anonymous function. So just write this blank bracket, and then the curly braces, something like this, okay? So this is our anonymous function here. And then the timeout, for example, I want to give the timeout 300 milliseconds, so you can give the timeout in milliseconds here. So second argument is the millisecond timeout, right? And inside this function I can perform some task, for example printing on the console. So I can use console log function for this. We have already used this console log in our previous program, and we will do the same here also, right? So what we can do, we can just print, for example, 3 seconds have passed, for example, something like this, okay? And then save your program, and I will open the console, and in here I will just run my app, for example node app.js, and run it. And when you run it, it will just wait for 3 seconds, and then it will print this message which we are printing using console log, okay? So once again, run the program, it will wait for the 3 seconds, and then it will print the message, and then it will come out of the event loop, for example, and it will close the program, right? In the same way, you can use a save or set interval function to set some interval. So instead of set timeout, you can use this function which is used to set interval. Now for this set interval, what we can do is we can define a variable, for example, and we will say this is our time variable, and we will assign the value of 0 to it, right? And then what we can do here is inside this set interval function, we can just use time plus equals 2, because our timeout or time interval we are using here is 2000 milliseconds, right? And for example, we can just print the value of this time here, and we can say this much amount of time has passed, or second have passed. Okay, and save your code and run your code once again, and let's see what happens here. So 2 seconds have passed, 4 seconds have passed, 6 seconds have passed. So it will increase the time, the value of this variable, by 2 again and again, and this function will enable your Node.js program to run in a loop kind of thing. So it will never end until you have some condition to end it. Okay, so what you can do to end it, you can just press Ctrl C to come out of the program. Okay, so let's say we want to come out of the set interval function when some condition is met. So for this we can define a variable called some other variable, for example timer, which is equal to set interval, and then we can clear this timer when some condition is met. So for example, if the value of time, so if the value of time is greater than, for example, 7, then we want to clear the interval. So just use a global object called clear interval, and then we can pass this timer variable here, and it's going to clear this interval. Okay, and then let's run the program once again, and let's see what happens. So 2 seconds have passed, 4 seconds have passed, 6 seconds have passed, and then when the value has become 8, at this time it is going to clear the interval, because when this condition is met, this function is called, which is going to clear the timer, and it's going to come out of this function, right? Now I'm going to also show you some of the other important objects which you can use in Node.js, which is dir name and file name. So we know that we can use a console log to print anything on the console, and there is a global object called dir name. So just write double underscore and then write dir name here. It's going to give you the directory name you are currently in. So I'm just going to once again run the program, and you can see it's going to print the directory name, right? Now for example, I want to print the file name I'm currently in. You can just write underscore underscore file name, right? And then you can run your program once again, and now it first prints the directory name, which is by this object dir name, and then we have the file name here. You can see app.js file, right? And you can go through this documentation once again, how they work. So for example, I go to the dir name. It's basically showing the same example which I have shown you, and here also file name, and the explanation of this function or object you can find in this documentation. So this documentation is going to help you a lot whenever you are developing in Node.js. So please keep in mind, whenever you are developing your server or any Node.js application, just go through the documentation whenever required. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners. In this video we will learn how we can create custom modules in Node.js. Now in the previous videos, we have already seen how we can use built-in modules in Node.js. And the example of that was using the module called HTTP. So in the previous videos, we have used a built-in module which was already built in a Node.js, which was called HTTP. And the way we have used it is like this. So we have used this require keyword and then use the name of the module which we wanted to use, right? And we have assigned this module to a variable so that it has created an instance of this module, and using this variable we can call any method inside this module which it contains, right? In a similar way, in Node.js, we can also define our own custom module. Now, for example, we want to define a module which says hello in different language. So we can define our custom module. Now for that, what we can do is we just need to create a new file for every module we want to create. So let me go to the command line and let's see what are the files which are there in inside my project right now. So as I can see, I have right now only app.js, which is my main file. You can see here also the same, right? And now I'm going to create a new file. For example, I'm going to say that it's a hello.js, for example. And in this new file, we want to create a function. For example, I will create a function, and first of all let me create a variable which has the name say hello in English, for example, right? And to this variable I will assign a value which is returned by a anonymous function. So we can define an anonymous function like this. We have already seen in the previous video. And then this function returns, for example, let's see what it returns. So it returns hello in English, something like this, right? And the way we can use this function in our main app.js is we just need to use a keyword called exports, right? So here we have defined this variable, and if you use, instead of this var, if you use exports, something like this, then you can use all the content of this file in the other file, for example, right? Now how you can use this file content into the main file? For example, we use the same construct. We just use var, and let's say our variable name we want to give here is hello, right? Is equal to require, just use require. And as we have done in the built-in module, we have just called the name of the module. For example, we were using HTTP, we have called the name of the module. So the rule in Node.js is whenever you are using a built-in module which is not created by you, then you can use something like name of the module only. Otherwise, if you want to use a custom module, you can just write something like this. So you can just write dot and then forward slash, and then for example the name of the file, so hello.js, something like this, okay? And now using this variable, you can call a function. So I will just use semicolon here, and then for example I will just console log the value which is returned by that function, right? And then what I want to do, I will just use this variable and then call a method which I have defined here, which is this one. So whenever you require any file, for example, all the method inside that file are available in this file which you have required this file, right? So I can just write something like this, and then don't forget these brackets, because this function have these brackets, right, without any argument, right? And then save your code and then go to the command line and then just run your app. So just write node app.js and it gives me error. So let's see what the error is. The spelling of export is wrong, so just write exports, right? So just write exports dot say hello, right? And then once again run your code, and now it prints hello. Okay, so in order to use the content of one file into other, you need to use this keyword before your function name, for example, right? Now if you want to use multiple functions, you can just write something like this. So for example, first function is say hello in English, then the second function is say hello in Spanish, for example, and it says hola, something like this, right? Now this method is also available, so both the methods are available now in the app.js file. So instead of using say hello in English, we can just say hello in Spanish, and then we can run our code once again and it prints hola, right? So this is one way of using a module, custom module, right? The other way is you can just use something like this. So what you can do here is you define your functions, these variables, remove the export from here, something like this, and then you just use these colons here, and then here you just write module dot exports, and in the curly braces just enclose both the functions, something like this. Okay, and just use comma here, and also don't forget to assign this value here. Okay, so just write module dot export, and then you have these object inside these curly braces, for example say hello in English and say hello in Spanish. And this is also this kind of export can also be used. So let's see what's the result now. I hope it will be same. It's the same result, right? So this is the second way of exporting your methods, right? The third way of using modules is, for example, you have these object and elements here, right? And then you can assign this to some new object, for example var hello, right? And then you can just use module.export and then assign the value of hello here, right? And we are not doing anything special here. You see we were using this modules.export here, right? And what we have done is, instead of using this, we have assigned the value of this object to a variable, for example var hello, and then we have just assigned the value of hello and we have exported this module, right? So essentially the same, but this is more readable. So this says that this is our hello module and it have two functions inside it, right? And it's also going to give the same result. So once again run the code says the same. Let's use both the function. So say hello in Spanish and say hello in English, and then we can just run our code and it prints hello and hello, hola, right? So in this way you can define a custom module in Node.js.
Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners. And in this video, I'm going to show you how we can use file system module in Node.js, which is a built-in module. Now, Node implements file IO using simple wrapper around the standard POSIX functions. And this is done using Node file system module or simply FS module in Node.js. Now let's see first of all how we can add fs module. So just write var fs is equal to require, and then you just add fs. Okay, and this is how you can add fs module. Now this fs module you can use for various input output functions related to file system. In this video particularly, we are going to see how we can use this fs module to read and write to a file synchronously and asynchronously, right? So first of all, we will use this file to read from a file synchronously. But for that, we need a text file which we can read. So I'm going to create a text file. For example, I will name it as test.txt. And in this text file, I'm going to write some things. And let's copy and paste this line. Okay, so this is what we want to read from our file system object which we have created using this file system module. So for reading this file synchronously, what we can do is we can just use file, and first of all we need to assign this output which we read. So we can just write var, and then we can just say read string is equal to fs dot read file sync. Okay, so just write read file sync, and this method will allow us to read our file synchronously. Okay, and then give the name of your file, and because this file is in the same folder, you just need to give the name of the file, not the path, because it's in the same folder. So just write test.txt, and the second argument which we want to pass here will be the encoding type. So just write for example UTF-8. And now let's try to print whatever we have read from the file to the console. So just write console.log, and we will just print this string here, whatever we have read. So it should be read string, and then we are going to run it. So open your terminal and just run it using node app.js, and you can see our file is read. So our file content, let's see what was the file content and what the terminal is showing, right? So same content as the file. So this file system module enables us to read the file synchronously. And if you want to write this file to another file, or write the content of the file which you have read to another file, new file for example, what we can do, so we can just write fs dot write file sync. So just write write file sync, and then just pass this result to the argument. Okay, So write file sync can be used to write to the file synchronously, right? And this write file method takes two argument. The first will be the name of your file. So let's create the name, for example test2.txt. okay, and the second argument is the content itself, right? And let's run our code and let's see what happens this time. So just see here what happens here whenever we will run this code. And you can see the text2 is created when we run the code, and the content of text2 is same as test1.txt or test.txt, right? So in this way you can use this to read and write to the file synchronously. Now fs module also have the async method, and this will allow us to read or write to a file asynchronously, right? So for this we just need to use the method called file name without sync. So by default, if you know about Node.js is a asynchronous program. So whenever you write the program, it runs asynchronously. And what I mean by asynchronous is I'm going to show you in just a second. So just write this. Once again, we want to read the content of test.txt file, and just call a method read file, and the first argument will be the same, and the second argument we want to pass here is the callback method, or let's say we can do it in the last argument also, right? So just write function and then just say error as a first argument and the data as the second argument, okay? And then give a curly bracket here and press enter. And in here, for example, if there is some problem in reading, we want to return error, so just call this first argument which we have passed in the callback function, which is this one, and then we can console error, right? So just write return console dot error and then pass this error here as an argument, okay? Otherwise, if there is no error in reading, we can just console log the content. So instead of console log outside the read file method, we can just call it inside our callback, okay? Something like this. And the argument which it takes now is data, because data will contain your content of your file which you have read, okay? For now, let's remove this line of code, and in here we will just call console log, and let's say we just want to print the file is read, for example, okay? And let's run the code once again and let's see what happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the program once again, or code once again, and you can see the output here. It's a little bit different from earlier. That first of all, the terminal prints, or this program prints the file is read, which is this line, and then it prints all the content of the file which was there inside the file. So this is done in asynchronous manner, right? So what's happening here is Node.js starts the server, for example, and this method is reading the file if the file is, for example, very big. So what happens then? So you want to in a real life situation, when you are dealing with real data, you need to do your stuff asynchronously, right? Because otherwise your code will block this running of your server, and other things cannot happens if one process or one file reading is taking very long time. But this way of executing your code asynchronously will help you to run your code in a very good manner, because your code is not waiting for the reading of your file, but it's executing the next step and the next step once again. If there will be some more useful code below this also, then it's going to execute it, and once the file is read, it's going to print the content of the file using this console log. So the callback function, this function is called callback function, and it is triggered whenever the file is read completely, right? So this is how asynchronous way of reading file works. Okay, in the same way you can write to the file asynchronously also, and you just need to call fs.write file, and then the name of the file in which you want to write to. So let's do that and let's see what happens. So fs.write file, and the first argument will be this argument. The second argument would be the content which we want to write. For example, we want to write this data which we are reading from the first file, for example. And the third argument will be the same as we have done here, the callback, right? So you can just copy this much amount of code before the bracket and then pass it here, and we can just add a semicolon here. Okay, and this is just checking whether your file is written, and if it's not written, it's going to console log the error, and if it's written, then we can say success. For example, we can just print success, right? Something like this. And when you run your code once again, it's going to write it. So let's run it, and program is done, and at last it prints success, and you can see the file is also created, text.txt, right? So in this way you can use fs module in Node.js. There is more functionality in this fs module which you can find on the Node.js site. So go to nodejs.org/api/fs.html, and in here you can go here, file system, or you will be able to find more method related to this fs module here, and there are so many method which you can use. So just go through this documentation, and then you will be good to go. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners. In the last video we have seen how we can use fs module to create file, read from file, and write to a file. Now in this video we will see some more functionality of fs module, and we will see how we can delete a file, and how we can create and remove directories in Node.js using fs module. So the first requirement is this one. You need to require this module, which is an inbuilt module, right? Now first functionality or first thing we will see here is how we can remove a file. So in the last video I have created this test.txt file, right? And for example, I want to remove this file, so I can just write fs dot unlink, and then I can just give the path of the file with its name. So my file is in the current directory, so I don't need to give the path, but I just need to give the name of the file, which is test.txt, right? And when I run this app, let's run it, and what happens is this text.txt file is gone, right? So this unlink method you can use to remove a file, but be careful here. Whenever you will run the code, if the file doesn't exist, then let's see what happens. Now this time it throws an error, which will be due to the file not existing. Okay, so in FS module you can also go to the documentation and check how you can first check for the file if it exists or not, and then delete it. So this can be your homework. Just search for how to check if the file exists and then try to delete it. Okay, now let's move ahead and let's see how we can first of all for example create a directory. So to create a directory, first we will see how we can create a directory asynchronously. So if you are a little bit familiar with command line terminal commands, then you know how to create a directory. So in terminal, whenever you type mkdir, then it creates a directory, right? And in node also, whenever you just call a method called mkdir after fs, and then give the name of the directory. For example, the name of the directory I want to give here is, for example, node itself. Okay, so node directory I want to create, and here I want to create it synchronously, so don't forget to write sync here, right? And save your code, and I'm going to run my code again, and let's see what happens. So I just run my code, and you can see there is a new directory created, which is called node, right? Now in order to remove a directory, you just need to replace mk by rm. So rmdir is going to remove the directory. So synchronously, for synchronous removal, you just need to add this suffix like sync, sync, right? And save the code, run it again, and just see here the directory will be removed. So this directory is removed, right? Now in order to create a file asynchronously, what we can do here is for example, instead of using this sync, we can just write something like this. So fs.mkdir, and then the name of the directory, once again, for example, node, and then you can create a callback function here. So I'm just going to write function, and then inside the callback function I can do whatever I want to do after the directory is created, right? So for example, I want to create a file after I have created a directory, something like this. Okay, so inside my callback function, what I can do is I can just write fs dot write file, right, with a capital F, and the name of the file. So for example, I want to create this file inside my new directory which is created, which is node. Now in order to create this file inside this node directory, you just need to write dot slash to indicate that you need to go inside this node directory, and then the name of the file, for example, my node.txt. okay, so this will be the name of the directory. And for example, you want to write something, I'm going to just write random text here, and this is going to write this text to this file, for example, right? So just save your code and run it again, and let's see what happens. So run the code, the directory is created, inside the directory the file is created, and inside the file this random text comes. Okay, so this is how you can make a directory. Now let's just say that you want to delete this directory once again, which also have some file inside it. So I'm going to just remove it, and I will just write fs.rmdir and the name of the directory. So the name of the directory is node, right? And if you do this, it's not going to delete this directory because we already have some file inside it. So whenever we run this code, what it gives is it gives the error because you cannot remove a directory if it contains a file inside it. So what we will do here is we will first remove the file and then remove a directory, and this is very simple, we have already seen it. So just write fs dot unlink, and then you just need to give the path of the file you want to remove. So this is because it's in a node folder, so you will just write dot forward slash node, and then you just need to give the name of the file. So the file name is my node.txt, and then we can add a callback function here. So just add a callback function, and inside a callback function, once this file is removed, we want to remove the directory, right? So you inside the callback function you can call a method to remove the directory, right? And just save your code, and let's run it again, and let's see what happens. So I'm going to just run my code again, and you can see the file is deleted first, and once the file is deleted, this callback function is called, and then the directory is removed. Okay, so in this way you can use fs module to create directories and remove directories and remove files also. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners. In this video we will talk about events module in Node.js and how we can use EventEmitter in Node.js. We will also see. So much of the Node.js core API is built around event-driven architecture, which means that because we know that Node.js runs itself in an asynchronous manner, so it's necessary to have some kind of event-driven architecture. Because for example, if you are reading data from a database, so once your data is read from a database, you need to trigger some event. Otherwise, if your code is blocking and it's not asynchronous, then your server execution will be blocked until the data is fetched from the database, right? So we have event in Node API, which help us to for example, same example, you want to fetch a data from the database, you write a function for this, and as soon as you you are done with reading of the data from the database, the code triggers an event. So your code will run asynchronously and it's not stopping, and as soon as some function is done, an event can be triggered, and the execution can be done, or it can be the data can be sent to the client, for example, right? So let's see how we can use events and events emitter in Node.js. So to use events, just write var events is equal to require this keyword events, right? Now in order to create emitter, you need to call a method called EventEmitter, right? So you need to create an instance of new EventEmitter object. Okay, so just write var EventEmitter is equal to new events, and then call an EventEmitter on this object, right? So with a capital E, right? So this will create an instance of EventEmitter. Okay, and using this event emitter, you can create an event or listener for the event, and then you can also emit an event, and the listener will listen to that event. So how you can create a listener? You can just write event emitter object, and then there is a method called on. And for example, you if you are writing UI, something clicked, for example some button is clicked, this is like a listener to your button click. So you can here write a keyword, for example clicked. So this will be the listener, and whenever this keyword called clicked is emitted, then this method, which is a callback function here, will be called, and whatever code inside this callback function will be executed. So this is kind of a listener. So let's say there is uh, this keyword clicked, and we will emit this keyword using event emitter once again. So just use event emitter dot emit, and simply you can just call this keyword, which means that this event is triggered. For example, clicked is triggered, and here you can use any keyword. So for example, if you are fetching data from the database, you can just write query here, or if you want to add some data, you can just write add. The keyword depend upon you, so whatever keyword you want to use here as a first argument, it's a keyword, and whatever keyword you emit, if it's the same as the listener keyword, then this code inside this callback function will be triggered. So let's see how we can use it. So for example, I will just console log something. So just write console dot log, and I will say something is clicked. Okay, so let's try to run our code. Now if you are using Visual Studio Code, there is a trick to open a terminal inside your Visual Studio Code editor itself, and the way you can do it, you can just press Ctrl Shift P, and it will give you this kind of a box, and here just type toggle integrated terminal, and here you can run your code again, and you can see we are already in the same folder in this terminal. So we just need to write node app.js and run it, and you can see something is clicked. So basically what's happening here is whenever you emit this keyword, then this listener will listen for this keyword, and then the method or callback function will be called, and whatever code you will write here will be executed. Okay, so this is the basic functionality of event emitters. Now in here you can also pass some argument with this emit method. So for example, you want to pass some text, so you can just pass, for example, button 1. Okay, and instead of this, you can just pass a function, for example button, and then you can just call button here plus, and then instead of something we will call button 1 is clicked. Okay, so this is an argument which will be passed here. You can pass any number of argument you want here, and just pass the same argument here. This value will be passed to this button, right? If it has the second argument, then the second value will be passed to the second argument. So you can pass some argument also like this, and once again when you run the code, it says button 1 is clicked. Okay, so you can also pass arguments here. Now let's take a little bit more advanced example. Now for this example, we will need, for example, a utils module, which is also a core module here. So just write util here is equal to require util, and using util it has so many functionality, and the functionality which we are going to use from this util is the inherit function, or inherits method from it. So there is a method in util, so just write util and then call a method called inherit. So and then it takes two argument. First is the class which you want to inherit in. So first is the class which is inheriting, right? So we need to create some for example object in order to inherit from EventEmitter. So let's create an object. So we will just create an object called students, and this student have this function which will take the name of the student, and then it will assign this name to the student itself. So just write this dot name, which is the name or the member of the student, and it will be assigned by this name which is passed through this function, right? Now, as I said, utils have this method called inherit, and it takes two arguments. First is the class or the object of the class which wants to inherit. So this is like a class which is inheriting, and the second is the object which is the base class, for example. So from the class which you want to inherit, so we want to inherit from this event emitter. Okay, now this is really good thing about event emitter. We don't need this bracket here, and we also don't need this here, right? So now if you know the concept of inheritance, what happens in inheritance is the class which is inheriting have the access to the methods and the members of the class from which it's inheriting. So student have the access to, for example, on method or emit method or whatever method, public method, which are there in this event emitter class, for example, right? So now what we can do here is we can create some student. For example, student one can be max is equal to new student, and we can give the name here max. Okay, so this argument is max in this first case, right? Now whenever we call this object, now this object also have the access to a method called on, right, which we have called using this event emitter instance, because students is inheriting this event emitter. Therefore this object of the student also have the access to this method, and you can simply use this method as we have done earlier. So this student, for example, we can just give the keyword scored, and then we can just pass the anonymous function or callback here, and we can just pass something like marks here, right? And we can console log it. So just write console log, and then we can console log, for example, first of all the name of the object, for example max dot name, and then we can just write here scores and the marks he scores. So the marks are here. Okay, we can print this, and then we can emit this event, right? In real life situation you can do this emit on for example receiving some data from the database, or connecting to a client whenever connection is successful, something like this. But here, for example, I can just write max.emit and then this keyword called scored, and the second will be, if you remember, the argument here can be the value of argument, this argument can be passed from here, right? So we can just say 95 marks. Okay, and let's run our code again. Just save the program and run the code again, and here it says max scores 95, right? And we can just write something like marks also here, so we know that he scores this much amount of marks. And once again run the code, and now it says max scores 95 marks, right? Now in the same way, you can create a second event, something like this. So instead of max, we can just say the second student is Tom, right? And the name you pass here also. And instead of max, you just essentially replace max by Tom. This is our second student, right? And this time Tom scores, for example, 60 marks. Okay, so once again, when you run the code, you can just see Mark scores 95 marks and Tom scores 60 marks. Okay, so in this way you can use events and event emitters in Node.js. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners. In this video, I'm going to show you how we can use streams in Node.js. Specifically, we will talk about readable stream in this video. And in the next video, we will talk about writable stream in Node.js. So let's get started. So first of all, what are streams? Streams are Unix pipe that lets you read data from a source and write data to a destination, right? So for example, you want to read a data from a very big file or from a source which has lots and lots of data, and because you are running a server, you don't want to block your server, right? So if you want to read this file, you may want to, or you would like to read this file in chunks or small portions, and once this portion is read, you want, or you can do something, right? And streams allows us to do the same. So streams allows us, for example, we want to read a big file, streams allows us to read this file chunk by chunk, and it will also give the information that this chunk is read, and if a whole file is read or not, or we can do many events from this data, right? So let's see how we can use streams, specifically readable streams, right? So to use streams, we will use the fs module, and we have already seen how we can include this module in Node.js. Just use var fs is equal to require fs. Now we will create a variable called, for example, readable stream is equal to fs dot create read stream, and this takes argument which is the name of the source. So for example, I have this file whose name is file.txt, and it has relatively big data. So it has around 5,200 lines of data. I just copied random data from some source, and for example, I want to read this data, right? Now this file name here we will give as an argument, so just give file.txt because it's in the same directory, you can see here. And now we can use this variable read stream, let's name it read stream instead of readable stream. Okay, so this read stream we can use to listen for some event. So basically whenever you use create read stream, it inherits from EventEmitter, and we have already seen how to use event emitters in the previous videos. So it inherits from event emitter, so we can call the method which are present in event emitter class also. So we can trigger on event or emit method using this read stream. Now there is a predefined event in create read stream which is called data. Okay, and which allows us to read our file in chunks. So just write read stream, and then we will just write on, which we are inheriting from event emitter, and we will listen for the event called data, and then we will just create an anonymous function here, and this anonymous function will read chunk of data. So just write chunk, and then we will just close our function. Okay, so in this variable, whenever this event is triggered, then this chunk will contain some chunk of data from this file, right? This chunk variable will be full, and then we will use this chunk of data from this file. Okay, so for example, what I want to do is I want to just console log this data. So I will just write console log chunk here. Okay, and one chunk of data is read, so we can just give a line kind of console log here, so we know that this is one chunk. Okay, after this line, right? So let's see how it works. So I'm going to just open the terminal and run my app, and you can see there are few chunks which are read from this file. Okay, so you can see my first of all, this line is printed on the terminal because of this console log, and then we have the chunk of data, and then again this line again, and this chunk of data. So it's reading the data in chunks, and when all the file is read, then we have the output. But this is not familiar because this is reading in hex, right? We haven't defined what type of data we are reading. So you can see in the file.text we have normal text, and it's reading in hex data, right? So how we can tell this function or method to read in readable text? You can guess. I think you can just write here the type, the second argument is utf-8 for example, and then just save it, and then we will run it again, and now you can see it's reading in the normal text. So you can see this line, and then the chunk of data which is read, and once again we will see when we will go a little bit up. So this is the next line, and whenever you will go up, you will see this kind of line. So now we are reading the normal text but in chunks again, right? So this event data will allow us to read the file, for example, in chunks, right? And whenever one chunk is read, you can do some logical stuff with this chunk of data, right? Now there is one another event called end, so you know that you have completed reading the file. So instead of data, whenever you use end, and let's, instead of this console log, we just say end, end here. Okay, and let's read the file again or execute the program again, and once this data is read, this line is printed, which is due to this triggering of event called end event. Okay, so once the file is read completely, this event will be triggered, and then this line will be printed, or whatever code you will write here will be printed. So for example, I will create a variable here called data, right? And what I want to do is I want to store all the text of the file in this variable, and once my data is read, or once my file is read, I want to print the content of this data. So instead of this, what I can do here is I can just write data plus equals chunk, something like this. So what it's going to do is it's going to concatenate this chunk into this data variable, right? And once all the file is read, I want to print it. So I will just do console log here, and I will print this data variable. So this essentially will contain all the file content. Okay, and let's just comment this code out because we don't need it, and let's run the program again. So program is running. So this time, once the data is read, then it's printed using this console log, because we are not printing using this. We have already commented out, right? So this time this line is printing this text, all the text. Okay, and once the text is printed, this line of code will execute and it will print end here, which is happening here. Okay, so this is how basically you can use readable streams in Node.js, right? Now there are many options related to read stream and write streams. So for example, one of the option we have set here, instead of setting the encoding from the second argument, there is a special method which you can use to set this encoding, which is the set encoding. So instead of this, you can even do this also, and the code will run fine. Okay, so let's run the code again, and it's going to run it normally. Okay, so just go to the Node.js documentation on its website, and you will find many useful functions and methods there which you can use in your code according to your requirement. This is just the introduction to streams, and specifically the readable streams. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners. In the last video, we have seen how we can use readable streams in Node.js, and we have used this method called createReadStreams to create an object of read streams, and then we have called this method on this readable stream object, which on data event was reading a chunk of data from a file which we have created last time. Yeah, and whenever a chunk of file is read, then it's going to be used using this variable chunk in this anonymous function, right? So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, just see the last video to be clear. Now in this video, we will see how we can use writable streams in Node.js. So for example, you have some buffer stream coming from somewhere. For example, from this file itself, whatever we read from a big file we have created last time, we want to write this data which we are reading in chunks to another file in chunks. So we are not reading the whole file and then writing to a new file. We are reading chunks and also writing chunks. So it's not going to block your code. Okay. So let's see how we can create writable streams in Node.js. Now to create a writable streams, I'm going to use this code which I've written in the last video to read the file, right? And now we will create a writable stream. So just write var write stream is equal to fs dot create write stream, and then we can give the name of the file in which we want to send our stream to. So for example, I can name my file as write file.txt. okay, this will be the file in which we want to write our data. Now to use this write stream is really easy. Whenever you read this data, so here on the data event we were reading the data, right? So in order to write it to a file, you can just call this write stream object, and then you can call a method called write on it. So just simply call a method called write, and then it takes a chunk as an argument. So you can just pass this argument here, and this chunk will be written to the write stream object, and in turn it will be written to the write file.txt. okay, so let's run the code and let's see how it works. So I'm going to open a terminal and run my code, and it has just printed these lines which indicates a chunk of data read, you can see. And then we can see a file is created here with the name write file, and it has the same content as our file.txt have. okay, so this is essentially just writing the chunk of data as it reads the data from a file. Now in the previous videos we have also seen how we can write the data using the write file function, right? Now the difference between this write stream dot write and the write file function is, in the write file function we were just flushing all the data which we have in the buffer, and it's not going to the file in which we want to write chunk by chunk, but we were writing it in a single shot, right? But using this method you can write the data to a file in chunks whenever you have data, right? So this is the benefit of this method and write streams over the write file method. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners. In the last two videos we have been seeing how to use readable streams and writable streams in Node.js. And in this video we will learn an important concept called piping in Node.js with readable streams and writable streams. Now in Node.js or any server application, writing and reading streams is so important and frequently used thing that Node.js has provided a better mechanism for us to use, which is called piping. So if you think about a website, for example, what it basically does is it takes the HTML page, for example. I'm just giving a very simple example. So a server takes a HTML page, and it first of all reads this HTML page and create for example writable stream and send it to a browser in which we can see this HTML page content, right? So this operation is really basic to a server whenever you are making a website, for example. So first of all, let's see what is piping or what are pipes. So a piping is a great mechanism in which you can read data from a source and write to a destination without managing the flow yourself, right? So in the previous video we have seen that we had to create a readable stream first from a file, and then we have created a writable stream, and then we were listening for the data event to write it to a file using the writable stream. And here also we can handle the ending of the reading, right? Now the piping makes it really easy, and it manages all these things by itself. So a pipe method listens for the data event by itself, and it automatically sends this chunk of data which we are reading to the file we want. So how we can create a pipe? So we still need here a readable stream and also a writable stream. So we will leave these two lines of code here. Now in order to use pipe, you can use pipe only with readable stream. So you need to have an object of readable stream and then call a method called pipe. Okay, and this pipe takes an argument which is a writable stream. So you can just give this object here, and then it's going to do the stuff automatically. So it's going to listen for the data event, and it's not going to worry about, or we don't have to worry about if the data is read slowly or fast, or handling the chunks of data, right? This pipe method is going to do it by itself. So let's run our code, and first of all I'm going to delete this write file because it's already existing. So I'm just going to delete this, and now I'm going to save my code and I'm going to run it. So let's run it. So the code has run, and you can see it has created this file again, which is writable stream and which has the same content as the input file which we have. Okay, so this makes things really simple for us, right? Now in server, so in the previous videos we have created a Node.js server, right? So let's use this server code again to send this file stream, or this data of the file using stream, to a web browser. Okay, so let's use first of all this HTTP module, which is an inbuilt module which we have also seen in the previous videos, right? So require, and then you can just write HTTP. Okay, and then we have created a server in the previous videos. So I'm going to just take that code which we have written in the previous videos for creating a server, and we will just use this code. Okay, so if you don't know how we can use this code, just see the previous videos where I have shown you how to use this HTTP module, right? Now in here, what we want to do basically is whatever we read from the file or input file, we want to send it to a browser, right? So let's first remove this code first of all, right? And let's run this code for the first time, and it's going to print hello world for us, right? So I'm going to run this code, and I'm going to open the browser, and it's going to just print hello world, which is the basic functionality of this code, right? Now in order to send the content of this file, we don't need a writable stream, right? Because we are going to directly send the file content to the browser. Okay, so what we are going to do is we will just take this readable stream, and we will create it inside this server. Okay, and using this read stream object, instead of using this response.end, which was sending this data to the browser, we can just use this read stream dot pipe, and then we can just add this argument called res or response argument here, and everything will be done by itself. And we are going to just remove this code here. Okay, so what we have basically done is we have created a readable stream, and then using pipe we are sending this stream to the response. Okay, and let's run the code and let's see if it runs or not. So I'm going to just stop my server and run it once again, and I'm going to refresh my browser, and you can see all the content of the file is on our browser page. Okay, so let's repeat what we have done here. So in the server, we have created a really small server which listens on localhost on port 3000. You can see here. And what it's going to do is it's going to just write to the, whenever a request come, it's going to write or give the response in a plain text. So this content type is plain text. It's not HTML because we are sending the plain text. Okay, and if you want to send a HTML page, you may rightly guess that we just need HTML text.html here, right? And this we are going to see in the next video to send HTML to the browser using this code. But right now we are using the plain text. That's why the content type is text/plain. And then we are reading the file using the file stream. And then we are just piping it to the browser using this response variable. Okay, so piping makes it really easy for us to serve the whatever we are reading as a stream. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners. In the last video we have seen how to use pipes to serve your text which you are reading from a text file to a browser, for example, and we have learned some concepts about pipes. Now let's use this concept to serve a HTML page to a browser, for example. So let's get started, and first of all we are going to create an HTML page. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to name my HTML page as index.html. Okay, so just create a page called index.html, and in here we are going to write our HTML code. Okay, so let's add a HTML tag first of all, and then we are going to add head and body elements. So just add head first, and let's add a body element also. And inside this body, let's write something. So inside the body, for example, I want to add a h1 tag, and in this h1 text, let's write something. So for example, our first Node.js HTML page, for example. Okay, and let's give some style to this page. For example, let's add first of all the style element here. Instead of this, just write style, and then inside the style, let's change the background color of our web page. So we can just do it by just changing the background color of the body. So just add body here, and we will change the background color, right? So just choose background color, and which color we want, for example light green or something like this. So let's use light green. Is there any light green here? Yeah, this. Okay, right? So this is essentially changing the background color of your HTML page, and it has one h1 element which has some text here. Okay, now because it's in the same folder as our project file, so we don't need to worry about any path here, and instead of this file.txt, we can just write index.html. okay, so just write index.html, and instead of plain text/plain here, now we are sending the HTML content to the browser. So just replace this plain by HTML here. Okay, and we will be good to go. So let's rerun our server. So I'm going to rerun our server, and let's refresh our page, And now we have our first HTML page served using our Node.js server to the browser, right? So this is not really complicated, and if you want to make a static website, you can add multiple static HTML pages and serve it using this technique. But Node.js is much more advanced and complex technology, and it can be used to do more complex stuff, right? So this is the simple way of just catering an HTML page to the browser. In the further videos, we will see how we can use some more complex functionality with Node.js.
Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners. In the last video, we have seen how we can send a HTML page using readable streams and writable streams in Node.js. Now in this video, I'm going to show you how we can send a JSON to the browser using Node.js, right? So JSON, most of the server application uses JSON as a data to send it to the browser, and this data can be passed on the browser side, for example, and then it can be used for multiple purposes. So it's also a popular technique that JSON is sent from the server to the browser, and then with this JSON data, some useful things can be done. So let's get started and see how we can use JSON and we can send JSON to the browser. So I'm using the code from the previous example. I have removed the readable streams and writable streams code from here because we are not going to use them in this code, and we are going to directly use this response variable to send the data using response.end. Okay. So first of all, we need to change the content type, right? So here, previously we were sending the text /HTML, but because we want to send now the JSON data, so you just need to write application /JSON, okay? And then this means that we want to send the JSON data, and browser will be able to pass this JSON data appropriately, right? Now in the next step, we will create a JSON object. So you can use a JSON file for that, or you can create a JSON object using the code also. So I'm going to create my JSON object using the code, but this can be done also using the JSON file. So you can create a JSON file here and read this JSON file and then convert it to, for example, stream, and then send it to the browser, right? So let's create a JSON. So var, for example, JSON obj for JSON object, and inside this brackets, we can add some elements to the JSON. So what elements we want? For example, we want the name, some name, and name can be Max, and then the surname, for example, and this can be something, and the age, for example. Age can be 26. Okay, so this is our JSON object, and this we want to send it to the browser. So we can simply use this response variable and then call a method called end, which we have been using in the previous video also. So just write end, and then you just pass your JSON object here. But this code will not work because the browser or whatever you want to send using this method, it only takes the streams or the string as an argument, and this is our object. So we want to convert this JSON object to a stream. And how we can do this? We can do this using a method called JSON.stringify, which will convert our JSON to a string. Okay, so this is the method JSON.stringify, which takes a argument you can see the details here. So it takes object as an argument, which can be a JSON, right? So this is our code, and first this object will be converted to a string, and then using this method it's going to be sent to the browser. So let's run our server first of all, and it has some error. So let's see what the error is. So the error is, instead of equal to, I need to use this colon. Yeah, and once again run the code and then use the browser to see the response, and you can see our response JSON is here, right? I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So this is our response JSON. Now in order to inspect this, you can just right click on your browser and then click inspect. In Google Chrome, I think this is the same option, inspect element or inspect, right? So click this and then go to a tab called network. Okay, so go to network here, and we need to reload our page. So you can click this reload button, and you can see it has the status 200, which we are sending from the code, this code, right? And then we will see the content type also. So just click on this get method, and you can see here the content type is application/JSON. So this is sent using this code. And then when you go to the response here, response tab, this tab, you can see this JSON is passed and it's shown in a formatted way, right? So in this way you can send a JSON to the browser using Node.js. Okay, and this is also a very useful technique whenever you want to send some dynamic data to the browser. For example, you want to fill some table using this JSON data, then you can do this, right? Because you can pass this JSON data based upon the elements and values, right? Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners. In the last video, we have seen how we can send JSON data to the browser from Node.js, right? And this was the code I have written in the last video. Now in this video we will talk something about routing, and we will talk how we can route our data and cater different responses for different requests, right? So let's get started. What I'm going to do is I have taken the last video code here, and I have added one more line here, which is logging the requested URL. Okay, just this req.url. I have added this code extra, and everything is same from the last video example. Okay, and now what I want to do here is I want to first of all run this app, and I want to just open my browser and refresh my browser. So the base URL here is / right? This is the URL. Now, for example, I want to request something like API for in my URL. I want to add / API, and I want to request some data when I request or I extend my URL with this / API. And when I do this, you can see the request is gone with the different URL, but the response is same, right? And for example, I want to add a about page, and I will press enter. It gives always the same response whatever the requested URL is. You can see I have requested the / API URL or / about URL, or for example home. Let's say home. The response is always the same. So how we can route these different URLs according to the request we want to send the response. So let's see how we can do it. So I'm going to go to the code once again here, and first of all I will use this URL to parse which kind of request is coming to us, and then on the basis of this request we can cater the result, right? So you can see I have already made index.html in the previous videos, right? So this is just a sample HTML which I have created in the previous video. So for example, I would say this is my home page. Okay, so I will just add home page, and when somebody request either the URL /home or just the /, then I want to cater this index.html or home page there. So what I'm going to do here is first of all, let's just take the space here. Let's make the space here, and first of all we will add the code to parse the URL. So just write request, which is the first argument here, request point or dot URL, which is going to give us the URL, and then give triple equals. Remember, I'm using triple equals because it's always a good practice to use triple equals instead of double equals. So try always using the triple equals, right? And then I want to match it with, for example, /home, or if it's only a /. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this and paste it here, and if it's a /, then what I want to do here is I want to give the text response. So I will just copy this line of code, but this is HTML, right? So instead of this I can just say text /HTML, right? Now in the next line we are going to create the stream of our HTML page, and then we will send it. This will be HTML here. So fs dot create read stream, and we want to create the read stream from our index.html. So we can just directly give index.html, which is already present, right? And we will pipe it to the response. So we just write to pipe and then just write response or res. Okay, so this is going to just send the index.html whenever this home is requested or the base URL is requested. Or else we can just write if, or you can better write else if, right? So just write else if, and if the request URL is, for example, the JSON object, so I will just say triple equals API. So this is just kind of a API, and whenever this API is requested, then we want to give this JSON object. So I will just create if condition, and inside my if condition I want to send all this JSON data, right? Something like this. Okay, so what will happen now, I'm going to just format it. Just right click on your Visual Studio Code and just click format. It's going to format your code, right? And let's rerun our code once again. So close the code and rerun it once again. And now when I do, for example, just a base URL and press enter, is going to show us the home page, which is the index.html it's sending from the server. Or whenever we write here /home, we will see the same response, the home page. But whenever we write here API, for example, API, then it gives us the JSON response, right? And in the same way, we can give different response on different requests. So let's add one more response, for example. So for example, I want to have a about page, so I'm going to create a about.html. So I will just say about.html, And in this about.html, I'm just going to copy the code from index.html, and I will just say here about page. Okay, so this is my about page, and in my app.js I can just copy this code from here. I would just say else, and my code, the code which I have copied, which is this code, and instead of home I will just add about here, and I will just remove this, right? And instead of index.html I will just replace it by about.html, right? And let's run the code again and let's see if it works or not. So I'm going to open the browser, and this time I will just ask for about, and it gives us the about page, right? Or home, then it gives us the home page, right? Now for example, let's say I'm just requesting some random URL once again. Is going to request it, but it's not never going to get any response from the server, because server cannot resolve this URL, right? Now in this case, whenever server cannot resolve the URL, ideally we want to send the response 404, which is not found, right? So let's add this response. So in the last condition I will just add a else condition, which is the last condition for us, and let's create a 404 HTML page. So I'm going to right click and I will just say this is my 404.html page, right? And once again I'm going to just copy the HTML content from index.html or about.html and paste it here, and I will just write here 404, and I will just write not found, right? And now I will just add the condition here. So in the else condition I'll just copy these two lines once again, and here I will just write the 404.html, and instead of giving 200 response, this response I will replace by 404, right, which is not found status code. And let's run the code again, and in the browser let's try this random URL again, and now it gives the 404 response to us. Okay, so home, and we have about, and we have our API, which gives us the JSON response, or any other random URL will give the 404 response, right? So in this way you can route your request and give the response according to the URL requested. Now there are much better ways of routing your requests using some extra modules or third-party modules, and this is we are going to see whenever we will learn how to use npm modules, right? So there are thousands and thousands of third-party module available to perform different functionalities, so we can use these modules using npm, and this is what we are going to see in the future, how we can use these modules. So all these things can be done in a much easier and professional way. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners. In the last video we have seen how we can perform basic routing using Node.js. Now if you want to do more routing stuff and other stuff, if you think of this, it can become really difficult whenever you want to add few more files here. You need to write lots and lots of code here in order to perform your stuff, and this can be easily done by third-party module. And there is a repository called npm or node package manager, which allows us to include third-party module which are created by experienced developers, and they have already invested their time to create these modules, and these are publicly available. So similar to these modules, for example HTTP or FS module, these are built-in module in Node.js. Now these third-party modules can be included in your project using Node Package Manager or NPM. So let's go to the NPM website and let's see what's there. So whenever you will search NPM on any browser, you will see the first result here will be from npmjs.com. Just click this link, npmjs.com, and in here you will be able to find many package modules or node modules which you can use in your project. So approximately there are around, I have last read that there are around 280,000 node modules available in this repository, node repository, right? So you can search this module. For example, if you know the package name, for example, this kind of routing can be done using Express module, right? So we can search Express here. So you can see you have the IntelliSense here, and you can see various options are listed here. So just search, for example, Express, and you will search for it, and the first option here comes is Express Flash, but we don't want Express Flash, we just want Express. So we can just search for Express once again, and here you can see the first option here is Express, right? So just click this link, and here you can see the documentation of this module. So it says fast, unopinionated, minimalist web framework. So you can use Express to do exactly we are trying to do in our stuff. For example, the routing stuff and RESTful API. If you want to create, you can do it using Express. On the right hand side, you can see the stats also. So stats here, you can see over 300,000 installs or downloads of this modules are done previously. For example, yesterday, last day, over 300,000, and this month itself have 1.8 million, I think, downloads here. So from these downloads, you can already recognize that this module is really popular, and this is the one of the most popular modules in Node.js, I can tell you, right? Now, how you can install this Express or any other module out of 280,000 modules in your project. So you can do it using command line. And let's open the command line in order to see how we can install it. So first of all, you need to be in your directory wherever your project is, and then you can use npm command to install these modules. So whenever you have installed Node, in the first or second video I have shown you how to install Node. With that, npm module has also come. So you can just know the version of this by just writing npm-v, and it's going to give you the version of npm. Now, in order to install this Express module, you just need to do npm install. So just write npm install Express, right? Which is exactly documented here also. So installation, npm install Express, right? So whenever you find a module, the installation procedure of this module will be given here. The documentation of this module will be given here, and quick start also will be given here. So you can come to this website to know more about any modules you are using, right? So I have just given this npm install express, and I will just press enter, which is going to take some time to download and install this express module. And you can observe here there will be a directory created with the name node_modules. So this module is downloaded in our project, you can see, and now there is a folder called node modules is created here. And when you open this node modules, you can see many modules are downloaded in your node modules folder, but the main package we have installed is this express module, and all the other modules which are coming with this express module are its dependencies. Okay, so for example, debug or destroy or any other module which is installed with this express module is its dependency, so it will also be installed with express, for example. Okay, now this is the way to install any module in your project, but this is not the preferred way of doing it. We will do it using a package manager, using npm command, which is the standard command, which is like this npm init, and this we will see in the next video. But for now I want to uninstall this module, so don't worry, if you want to uninstall a module also, you can do it using npm command. So let's uninstall, and the command is really simple, npm uninstall. Instead of install, you just need to write npm uninstall and the package name, and then press enter, which is going to uninstall the module. So you can see the process is going on, and then whenever you go to your node modules folder, there's only a .bin folder left here, and every other module is deleted because we have uninstalled this express module, right? So using these modules is also simple. You can just add them like this. So var http require, and then once your module is installed, you can just give the name of the module, right? So this is just the introduction of Node.js. The standard way of using npm is using package.json file, which is kind of a file which have all the records, whatever modules are there in your project, and this can be given to other developers also, who can use this project with your package.json file, and then they can install these modules, and they know which version of any module you have installed using this package.json file. So this is exactly we are going to see in the next video, how to use package.json file to create and maintain your project. So this was the brief introduction about npm, and we will see how we can use npm and third-party modules from the next video. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create your project using npm from scratch. And we will also see what is package.json and why it's required. So let's get started, and I want to create a new project. So right now we have been working on this hello project, and still we are in this project using Visual Studio Code, right? So I want to change this project, or I want to create a new project, and for example, this project is in my samples folder, right? So in the samples folder, I'm going to create one more directory. So I'm going to open the command line, and right now I'm in the hello folder, which is this one, right? So I will go one folder back. You can also use this folder explorer to do the same things which I'm going to do from command line. So right now I'm in samples folder, which is this one, right? So I'm going to create a directory, for example. So I will just give mkdir command and the name of the directory, for example, first
npm. So because we are creating our first npm project, or the project using npm, our first project using npm, so I'm going to name it as first npm, right? And I will just press enter, which is going to create this folder here, right? First npm. Right now this is a blank folder, and the way you can open this folder in Visual Studio Code is just go to the file, open folder, and then just choose this folder, which is right now blank and which is totally fine. Okay, so it's going to open this folder in your Visual Studio Code. Now in order to initialize your project and configure your project, give the name, version, and other properties to your project, you can give the command called npm init, okay, which is kind of initialize your project. Okay, so just give npm init and then press enter, which is going to ask you some questions. So first of all, right now I'm in samples folder, which I don't want. I want to go to the first npm folder. So I'm going to just cancel this npm command and let me go to the first of all this first npm folder. So right now I'm in the first npm folder. I was in samples folder, so I changed it to first npm, right? Now I'm going to clear everything for now, and then I will give npm init command. Okay, so just go inside your folder in which you want to create your project and give npm init command and press enter, which is going to ask you some questions. And the first question is the project name. I'm going to leave it as default, so press enter. Then the version, this is the default version. Then whenever you make a major change to your project, you can change the version also, but in the later stages, right? So I'm going to leave it as default and then press enter. This is a description to your project, so you can give any description to your project. For example, first npm project, for example, and then press enter. And then it's going to ask the entry point, and this will be the entry point JavaScript file for your project, so index.js file. So I'm going to leave it as default, and then it's going to also ask you if you have any test commands or not. I don't have any test because I haven't even written any code yet, so I will leave it as default and press enter. And if you have any Git repository, it's going to ask you. I don't have any, so I'm going to just pass it. Here you can give any keyword to your project, for example, node, npm, or any keyword related to your project, right? And then press enter. And then the author name, you can give your name. I'm going to just say me. And then the license, I'm going to leave it as default. And then it's going to confirm that if you want to give these information, these are the information which will be saved in your project. And if you are sure, you can just press yes and then press enter. Okay, so you can see there is a package.json file created inside your folder. So let's open this package.json file, and here whatever information you have given using npm init command, it's all there. So it's a JSON file. The name of your project is first npm. The version is 1.0.0, which is the default version. And we have also given the description. This is the entry point. So this file will be the main file which npm is going to see. So let's create this file first of all. So I'm going to just right click here, create new, index.js. Okay, so this will be my entry point. Now if you have some tests, you can give some test commands here, but right now we don't have any tests, so we are skipping it. We have given these two keywords here, but you can give your keywords. And then you have the author name and license, right? Now in the last video we have talked about Express module. So whenever you want to install any package or node module
in your project, what you do is you can just use npm install, right? So npm install and then the name of your package. So for example, Express. But this time, instead of pressing enter, you just need to just give save, for example. So just give hyphen save or minus save here. And what this command is going to do is, or what this save flag is going to do is, it's going to add this express to your package.json. So let's give this command and let's see what happens. So I'm going to press enter with this minus save flag, right? So it's going to install this express package, and we will see this node modules directory created. And in your package.json, you can see element is added, which is express, and here is the version of express which is installed, right? So whenever you give this command, for example, any command, install command which with save flag, it's going to add it your package.json with the package installed and the version of package installed, right? So now whenever you write some code in your project and whenever you want to give it to your colleague to run it, you can just give this kind of project, and you give your project without these npm module installed, right? Because these directories are so many directories and they take lots and lots of memory. So the ideal practice is to give your project file with your package.json without node modules folder. And whenever somebody will use npm install command, this whatever is listed here is automatically will be installed in your project. So let's say I want to uninstall this express now. So I'm going to uninstall it and press enter. This is going to uninstall the express module, and we will see every module will be deleted from the node modules folder. But you can observe that by giving this uninstall command, this dependency is not deleted here, right? So if this dependency is there, and now, so you can see right now node modules doesn't have any express module because we have uninstalled it. And this kind of project, you give it to your colleague, and what he does is this colleague can just run npm install without any package name. So he can just do npm install, and this npm install is going to go through your package.json file, and it will see which package is there in your package.json, for example express package, and the version of package which is there in your json file, package.json file. So it's going to install automatically this package in your project. So let's give npm install without any package name, and it's going to go through your package.json, and it's automatically going to install. In some moment you are going to see here express will be installed. So you can see express is installed in your project just with this dependency, right? So this is why package.json is important. So whenever you want to distribute your project, the package.json is the, for example, entry point for npm to recognize which modules are there in your project, which packages are there, and which version of packages are installed, what are the test commands, what is the entry point for your project, and some description of your project, and even the version, right? So you can see this is the express version which is installed. And for example, whenever you develop your project and somebody want to install your project as a module, this will be the version which is going to be installed. So this is the version same as this version, right? Now you can go to node modules. So go inside this node modules, and we are going to go inside this express folder here inside node module, and you can see this express module also have its own package.json file. So let's open this package.json file, and you can see there are a bunch of elements here. And when we go down, you can see you can add to your package.json contributors, and then you can see the dependencies of this Express is except, for example. So you can see except module is installed, then array, and this module is installed, then this content description, content type. So one by one, every module will be installed, whatever is listed as a dependency in the package.json file. Okay, so this is the importance of package.json. You can go down, and there is one element called dev dependencies, which we are going to talk about later. And you can see many elements here. So whenever you want to distribute your project, you can see this is MIT license for Express module, and the maintainers of this modules with the name and the email ID of those persons who are maintaining this modules. And there are some scripts. So if you want to test your Express module, this is the command to test, right? So whenever we will write some test for our module, we will write this kind of command to our package.json file also. Okay.
Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can install and download Node modules globally on your operating system, right? So till now, what we have seen is how to install Node modules locally. So whenever you install a module, a directory called node module is created, and then your module is installed inside this directory, right? But if you want to use the node module in different projects, the same node module you want to use in different projects, then you need to install a node module globally. This is not a good practice unless it's a module which helps you to develop your project. But sometimes some modules, when you install globally, helps you in the development, and one such module is nodemon, right? So first of all, I'm going to open the terminal inside my Visual Studio Code. So I will just write toggle integrated terminal, and it's going to open it. And I'm going to run my app first of all. So I will just write node app.js, right? And this is the app we were making in the previous videos for routing, different requests. Okay, so what is nodemon first of all? So nodemon, you can go to the npm website and search for nodemon. And nodemon allows you to develop your project in such a way that whenever you run your project with nodemon command after installing nodemon, it will watch your file. So whenever you change your stuff in your project, it's going to watch for the changes, and as soon as you press the save button, it's going to restart your server. So right now what we do is, when we make some changes, for example, I add a comma here, I need to stop my server from here and save my code and restart my server in order to let the changes happen, right? But in the development, this can be really tiring to restart and stop and restart your server. So nodemon, whenever you install it globally, will help you to watch your files. If you change your file, it's going to restart the node server automatically. So first of all, let's see how we can install nodemon. Okay, so the command to install nodemon is npm install. So just write npm install and then nodemon, and then give a flag -g. Now flag -g stands for global flag. So whatever command or whatever module you install with -g flag it will be installed globally. So it's not going to install in your node module folder inside your project. It's not going to install here, but it's going to install globally on your operating system. So whenever you want to use this nodemon module from other project also, you can use it, right? So it's not going to be installed locally but globally. So just give this command npm install nodemon -g and press enter, which is going to install this nodemon. If you are on Linux operating system, you may have to give sudo command, sudo access to install this, because the directory where this global module will be installed is protected for the root user, right? So if you are on Linux operating system, just run this command with sudo. Okay, so once this module is installed, you can see here it's not installed here, nothing is here in my node modules, right? But it's installed at a specific location. On Windows, this location is this one. So I'm going to just paste this command in the description. So just copy this command and open your folder explorer, and then just paste this command like this, okay, in here, and then press enter, and it will be showing you the location where your global module is installed. So you can see nodemon is already there. I have other global module called node inspector, which I have already previously installed, right? So this is the global location, your username, and in app data roaming there will be a folder called npm/node modules. So this is the global location of node modules, and every project you will make will be able to see this module, right? So I'm going to give this command in the description so you can also see this. Okay, so once the nodemon is installed, you can see in the documentation also you can install it globally like this. Then you just need to write nodemon and the name of your app.js file. So just write, instead of node, just write nodemon here. Okay, so let me just clear it a little bit so we can see it clearly. So here we are going to give nodemon command. Instead of node, give nodemon, this command nodemon, and then the app.js file name, so app.js, right? And then press enter, and you can see your server on the browser which we have made. So we are right now in the home page, and for example I want to change this routing. Instead of about us, I want to use, for example, instead of about, I want to just write about us here. So I want to show the about page on this URL, about-us. Okay, and I'm going to save it, and as soon as I save it, you can see the nodemon server sees that I have saved a file, so it has restarted the server again. So you can see restarting due to changes, starting node app.js, right? So the server is restarted whenever I press the save button, right? Or for example, I will just go here, file, and I will just press save, right? And you can see it restart when I save my code. Okay, and then I can go to my browser, and when I just say about here, instead of this, about, and it's going to give me 404 because I have already changed the URL to about us. So I will just give about us this time. It should be about up I have given here, right? So I will just say about up, and I can see the about page, right? Ideally it should be like this, about us, and I will just say save. It's going to restart, and this time when I refresh it, now it shows me 404, and when I say about us, it gives me about page, right? So this makes your development really easy when whenever you want to frequently change your code on your project, right? So in this way you can install global modules on your operating system, and in this way you can use nodemon with your Node.js server. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners, and from this video we will start learning Express.js. Express.js is one of the most popular and widely used web framework in Node.js development, and Express.js allows you to handle routings, servers and IO stuff really easily. So let's dive into the world of Express.js. So what I have done is I have created this empty folder called express_test, and first of all I'm going to initialize an empty project inside this express test folder. So I will just cd to this folder wherever this folder is, and then I'm going to just use npm init to initialize the project, right? So just write npm init, which is going to initialize my npm project, and I'm going to leave everything as default, and I'm going to press enter for everything, which is going to create this package.json for us, which is really basic, right? Everything is default. Now let's create this index.js file, because we have defined here in the package.json that index.js is our main file, right? So I can do it from here, or I can even do it from the terminal also. Now the next thing we are going to do is we are going to install npm module for Express, right? So I'm going to just open the terminal once again, and I will just write npm install Express, right? You already know this command, right? And I'm going to also add this flag save, so it will be saved in my package.json file, right? So I'm going to press enter and wait for the installation for the npm module, and in some time you will also see this dependency added to your package.json, as well as the npm module created here, the folder named npm modules, right? So you can see Express is installed now, right? So now let's start writing some code. So to start an Express, we need to require this Express module. So you can just write var and then Express and then require, and you can require the Express module, right? Like this. So this is really basic, and to create an Express app you need to call this Express method, which is going to give you the access to the instance which you can use to listen on any port, right? So I'm going to just create an app variable. This is the common convention to use this name for Express app, and then you just take this variable and call a function called Express from it. Okay, so this app instance is going to allow you to create and listen on some port. So you can just use app.listen, and then you can listen on any port. For example, I want to listen on port 3000. It's same like using HTTP module, right? And then I'm going to create an anonymous function. So let's create a anonymous function here, and then the curly brackets, and in here I can console log something. So just console.log, and let's say our server is live on port 3000, right? And then give a semicolon here and save your code, and let's run our server. So I'm going to just write node and then index.js and then press enter, which is going to run our server. And if you remember, we have installed nodemon, right? So we can use nodemon here, but for the first time let's just use node here, and then I'm going to refresh this page and it starts listening. Now if you can see here, it says cannot get. Now get is the default HTTP method the Express is going to use, right? Now there can be 4 type of HTTP method which can be used for requesting from the client to the server, and that are, for example, I'm going to just comment here and I'm going to just write the name of the methods, right? So first method is get, second method is post, third method is put, and the fourth HTTP method is delete, right? So Express is capable of using or doing everything: get, post, put, and delete, obviously. And the way we can do it using routing is we can use this app instance, and it's going to allow you or allow us to use different kind of method, and the name itself can be used to do routing. But for this video, because it's an introduction, so we are going to just use the get HTTP method using this app instance, and later we are going to see the much complex stuff like post, put, and delete request. So just write app and then the name of the method, for example get, and then we provide the basic routing. For example, the basic routing is our home page, for example, and then we will use an anonymous function which will allow us to send us the response, right? So first argument here will be the request, and second argument is the response. So I will just say reply, and then I'm going to just complete this anonymous function like this, right? And from here I can just use reply argument from here, and then dot send, and then send any reply to the client which is requesting this get request, right? So this is the body you are sending. So I am just going to say this is home page, okay? And in the same way we can provide multiple routes as we have done with HTTP modules. So let's create some routing. So the next routing I want to create here is about, and the next routing is, for example, for the contact, and I'm going to just write here instead of home about, and here contact, okay? And save and rerun my project. This time I'm going to use nodemon. So just write nodemon, because we in the last video we have installed nodemon, right? And then index.js. So we will save the time in restarting the server, right? And then I'm going to refresh here, which is going to give me this reply which says this is home page, and let's request this IP address and the about route, and then it says this is about page, and then contact page, and now it says contact page, right? So everything is working, and when we give any faulty routing, it says cannot get this kind of request, right? So let's summarize what we have done. So what we have done in this code, we have installed first of all Express npm module, and then we have required this npm module, and then using this Express method we have created an instance called app, which we can use to call different methods like get, post, put, or delete, and we can listen on any port using the listen method and the name of the port or the number of the port which you want to listen on, right? Now if you can see here, you may ask that we haven't provided any content type here in the reply. So the answer for this question is Express is intelligent enough to recognize the content type which is replied as a response to the client. So if you pass string here, Express is intelligent enough to recognize that this is a string, so you don't need to provide the explicit content type like plain text or something like this with this reply, right? So in this way you have saved some lines of code. So this was the brief introduction to Express, and in the further videos we will learn more functionality about Express. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners, and in this video we will learn how we can pass parameters and parse parameters in URL routes using Express. So in the last video we have seen how we can pass these kind of routes, and whenever you ask or whenever you give this kind of URL, for example your IP address and port, and then whatever route you give, according to this you see the response, right? But for example you want to give the dynamic route. So for example you have some database. Right now we don't have a database, but in the future you will be using a database and you wanted to query the database. So you want to pass some parameters. For example, you have the student database and you want the student data using his ID or his roll number or any other thing, for example, right? So how we can pass parameters in the URL, we will see in this video using Express. So what we do is we are going to, just going to copy the code which I have written in the last video for this. So just copy and paste the same code, but instead of this route, for example, you want a student route. So I'm just going to write students here, and then we want to get the student according to the ID which is given in the URL. Okay, so whenever you want to parse any parameter, you give this colon before the parameter name. Okay, so just give the colon, this kind of colon, and then any ID or name, whatever you want to give. So you can give, for example, name here, or surname, or age, anything, whatever parameter you want to pass, and we will be able to parse that parameter, and then according to this we can give the response. So for example, we want to just parse this ID which is passed using the URL route. Okay, so in the response, for example, I'm going to write that you have requested to see the student ID, and then I'm going to just give the ID. Now in order to parse this ID, we need to take this request and then dot params and then the name of the ID, for example ID itself. Okay, and let's save the code. My node is running using nodemon, so I don't need to rerun it, and I'm going to just go to the browser, and here I'm going to just give student and then the student ID, for example 12, right? And you can see I think it's students, not students, so I must give here students route, and you can see it gives me the response, you have requested to see the student ID 12, because I have passed 12 here, right? I can pass any number here and it will give me that number, right? So once again any number, and I can see this number here, right? In the same way I can pass the name also. So instead of ID I can use name, and here also name, and here also name, right? So name, and I must write name here, and must save my code, and then refresh my page using some names. So for example Mark, and then refresh, and now it says you have requested to see student name Mark. Now if you will be using some kind of a database, then you can take this name which is passed using the URL, and then you can query the database on the basis of this name, and then you can give your response. So we will take a little example. For example, we have a JSON data. So I'm going to just write, for example, var students, and then this is a JSON. So we have a student data JSON, and then I'm going to just write 1, and 1 is so roll number 1 or ID 1. So ID 1 is Mark, for example. Then ID 2 is Tom, and then ID 3 is for example John. Okay, and then I'm going to just replace here name with ID, and here also ID, and here also ID, right? But we want to reply on the basis of the ID requested. We want to give the name, right? So here I will write name, and the way you can do this is you can just take the students, because it's a kind of an associative array. You can take the student, and then using square bracket you can get the value on the basis of key passed here, right? So I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to refresh it, and I'm going to just give the ID 1, for example, right? And it's going to give me Mark, right? Because in our JSON we have the name Mark as ID 1, right? So for example 2, it gives me Tom, and then for example I pass 3, it gives me John, right? So in this way you can pass parameters as a URL routing in Express, and that's it for this video. In the next video I'm going to give you some more insights about Express. So hey guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners, and in this video we will talk about templating engines. So far what we have learned is how we can pass these kind of parameters to the client using Express.js. So before starting templating engines, I wanted to show you how we can transfer or show the HTML file on the browser using Express.js. So let's get started with that, and then we will start with the templating engines. So I have these two files, about.html and HTML or index.html, right? So these two HTML files I have. So what I'm going to do is, in the route, what I want to do is I want to send the index.html file, right? So the way you do it is you take this reply argument and then call a method called send file. Okay, so just call a method called send file, and then the name of the file which you want to send. So because we are in the current directory, so I'm going to take the dir name plus the file name. So the file name I want to send is index.html, right? In the same way you can just send the contact.html or about.html, which we have here, right? So here I want to send about.html, and I'm going to save my code, and my nodemon is already running, so I don't need to rerun it once again. And I'm going to open my browser, and I'm going to refresh this, and it says this doesn't exist. Yeah, I forgot to give the / here, so I just need to give / and once again I will save, and I will refresh the page once again, and now it says home page. And let's call the about page also, so just write about, and it says about page. So this is how you can send any file to the browser using the send file method, right? Now this is how you can send the static files, but for example you want to send some parameters with the HTML file, or you want to inject some parameter in your HTML file, then what will you do? So for that, we use the templating engines, and there are many engines which you can use with Express.js. For example, Jade or Jazz, or some other engines like Underscore or Toffee. But what we are going to use is the templating engine called EJS or Embedded.js. So let's get started with EJS. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to open the website on which we can find more documentation on EJS or Embedded.js. So just open this website, which is called embeddedjs.com, whose short form is EJS, right? And when you will scroll down, you will see how you can use this EJS with your HTML, and how you can embed the parameters in your HTML text or file, right? So for that, first of all, we need to add a package EJS in our project. So EJS is a node package. So I'm going to first of all install EJS package using npm. So let me clear the terminal, and I will just write npm install, and I will just give the flag save also, so it will be added to our package.json file also, and then just write EJS, okay, and then press enter, which is going to add this package to our project. And once it's done, you will be able to see this EJS is added to your package.json, and you will also see EJS is added to your node modules also, right? So I'm going to just close this and close the HTML files. And now the way you add this EJS, or to use this EJS, we need to add the view engine property, or we need to set the view engine property to your Express app. So you take this app variable and then call a method called set, and then we will set a property which is called view engine. So just give single quote and just write view engine, and the next property is the name of the engine. So in this case we are using EJS, right? So the property name is view engine and the value is EJS. Okay, now we can use EJS in our project. Now by default, when Express sees that the engine view engine is EJS, it looks in the directory called view. Okay, by default it's going to look in a directory called view for the EJS files. So we are going to make a directory called view. So just create a directory and name it as view, and inside this directory all our EJS files will go, right? So what we want is, for example, in the last video we have created this route for students, and whenever some ID is passed for the student, then his name is returned to the, for example, client or to the browser, right? So we are going to take the same route, but this time what we are going to do is we are going to transfer this data to the HTML file and inject in this parameter to the HTML file and then present it to the client, for example. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create a new file inside my view folder. So this is my view folder, and I'm going to create a student file because this is a student's route. So I'm going to create a students.ejs file. Okay, so it's not going to be a HTML file, but it's going to be a EJS file, right? But the content which you will give inside this EJS file will be the same as your normal HTML file have. So for example, I'm going to just copy this code from my index.html, which doesn't have much. It just have the body of HTML page and the main h1 tag, right? So I'm just going to copy, and then in the student.ejs file I'm going to just paste this code, right? Now the way EJS work is we need to go to index.js, and instead of using this kind of code, reply or rep.send, instead of this, what we are going to do is we are going to just write rep.render. Okay, so here we are going to use rep.render, and then it takes two parameters. So the first parameter here will be the name of your view file. So in this case, our view file name is students, right? You can see here students.ejs. So we can just pass the view file name, which is student, and the extension you don't need to give it here. Okay, just the name of the file. And the second parameter it takes is the object. Now this object is a key value pair. So the first is the key. For example, we want to send the student name, so I'm going to just name the key as name itself, because it's a student name, right? And the value for it is the value which we have here. So in the last video we had this kind of small object, and this has the key value pair. So for example, we requested student1, then it's going to give us the result by returning its name, student's name, right? So this is how you can get the student name by ID. So I'm going to pass it here. Okay, and then we don't need this thing here because we are already sending our parameter using this render method and to the student file. Now the way you add this name parameter to your EJS file is, so I'm going to go to h1 tag here, and if you have seen inside in the embedded.js.com, you do it something like this. So you take this angle bracket, start your angle bracket, then this mod sign, then equals, and then the parameter name, and then end with mod, and then closing angle bracket. So I can just copy this from here, and I will do the same here. So in your h1 tag or any tag, for example, it's a paragraph tag, or it's any other h2 tag or other tags, you can do the same. So just use a tag, and inside your tag just start angle bracket mod equals, and then the parameter name. So our parameter name is name itself, right? So we want to parse in our EJS file this parameter name, right? So that's why I have written name here. Okay, and then I'm going to just save everything, and I'm going to rerun my app. So I'm going to just use nodemon.index.js, and then I'm going to go to my browser, and in here I'm going to ask for the students file, because here we have the students.ejs, right? And we will give the student route here, and then the ID of the student. So ID of the student, for example, I want to give 1 here, right? And then press enter. It gives me some errors, which I'm going to see what the error is. So the error which I can see here is, it says failed to look up view students in views directory, and I name my directory as view, not views. So this is the error you will see if you do anything wrong, and by the message it looks like my directory name view is wrong. We need to name it as views. Okay, so my directory name views must be, I'm going to rename it as views instead of view. Okay, and then I'm going to refresh my page once again, and hopefully this time I can see this message mark, because student ID 1 is for Mark, right? So we can just edit our student.ejs file. For example, you have requested the student name, and then you give the student name. And for example, I want to add the ID also. I want to show the ID on my student HTML file also. So I will just add the parameter tag here, and I will say ID and then the colon, and then I will use the same method like this here, and here I will just rename it as ID, and I need to pass this ID parameter from here, right? So let's go to the index.js file, and then here in the second element in the JSON you can just add ID and then just pass this ID there. So the ID will be request.params.id, right? So just give colon here and then pass your ID here. Okay, so first element of the JSON or object is name, and second element of the JSON object is ID, right? In the same way you can add multiple object in your second parameters, right? So just save your code and then rerun it once again. So I'm going to just ask for the student one once again, and now it says you have requested the student name Mark and the ID is 1. For example, I will just add 2 here and press enter. This time I have Tom and then the ID is 2, and once again, for example, for 3, then the John name and the ID is 3 here. Okay, so this is just the starting for the templating engine. In the future videos we will see some more concepts on EJS.
Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners. In the last video we have seen how we can use EJS with Express and Node.js. Now in this video I'm going to give you some more information about EJS, and I'm going to show you how we can use some control flows with your EJS templating engine, and let's see how we can use it. For example, we want to use a for loop which we normally use on the client side. Using for loop we can iterate over any array or something like that. How we can use with the help of EJS, let's see. So for that I'm going to modify this data structure which we have. So we have this students JSON, and earlier I have created something like that it's like a key value pair. But in a more complex application, a student can have a name, surname, age, or many other things, right? If you are querying with in the database, it can have many data columns, and then I will try to emulate that thing with this JSON. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just modify this array like this, and for the student ID 1 I'm going to first of all add the student's name here, and then I'm going to add the student's name. So for example, Mark, and then for example let's say what subject he has taken. So I'm going to just write subjects here, and then this is going to be an array. Okay, so array you can do with square brackets, and let's say this student is of some computer class or programming class. So he has taken C++, Java for example, and let's say he has taken C also. And same we are going to do with other two students. So instead of this, I'm just going to copy and paste this code here and here also. Okay, and then the student name was Tom here, and the student name for the third ID is, for example, John, right? And the programming language, let's change the programming language. So for example,
second student like C#, Python, and let's say he likes some database, MySQL. And third, for example, he likes JavaScript, and he likes for example SQLite database, and he likes C itself. Okay, so we have this kind of data structure now for the students, right? Now this we want to show on our client, how we can do it. So for that, in the last video we have created this kind of render method, and we have injected this kind of JSON there, right? Now because we have modified our JSON data structure, so here we will take the student JSON, and then we will first of all find its ID. So this will be this one, and then dot name is going to give you the name of the student. Okay, and then ID will be same, and let's say we want to add one more field, which is subjects. Okay, so I'm just going to copy here and paste it here. And then subjects, how we can extract the subjects, let's see. So I'm just going to just give the line break here, and subject will be the same as the name, but instead of subjects, instead of name, we will just replace the name with the subject. So you can do something like this. Now this is going to be sent as an array to the client. So the client EJS file has to parse it or iterate over this array, and then show the output, right? So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add a h1 tag, and then I'm going to just write here, for example, subjects, and then I'm going to add a unordered list or ordered list, whatever you want. So for example, I'm going to add an unordered list here. So let's add a unordered list, so ul for unordered list, and then we can inject for example some JavaScript code for parsing this subjects array, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to write the name of the array. So this time the element name is subject. We want to pass this element, right? So we will take this element subjects, and then we will iterate over it. So there are many ways of iterating over array. In JavaScript we are going to just use for each, for example. Okay, so just write for each, and then we will just write a callbacks function. So just write function, and then just write, for example, item, and then just we will iterate over all the subjects and we will print it. Okay, and don't forget to give the ending bracket and the semicolon here. Now the way you show this using EJS is the same way you used in the last video. So you use this starting angle bracket and then a mod symbol, but for the JavaScript you don't use this kind of equals for the code, right? So you just need to use for example this starting angle bracket and mod, and in the end the mod and then closing angle bracket, right? And then you need to do the same here also with the next line, like this. Okay, so you don't need to use equals here whenever you are using, for example, a JavaScript function. And then you can normally add a HTML tag once again. So for example, this is a list item for us, so I'm going to just write list item, and then we are going to just print that item. So how we can print it, we just need to print the item, because this item contains our data, for example subject, right? So the way you do it using EJS, you just need to do this angle bracket percentage equals, as we have done in the last video, like this, right? And then this would be the item, right? So all the items will be iterated. So let's save our code and let's run it and let's see what's the result. So I'm going to ask for the student 1, so student and then 1, and then refresh the page. So we got the error, and let's see what the error is. So it says syntax unexpected token, then this curly bracket. So we need to search for this kind of bracket, and let's see where it is. So in our function, yeah, so I have closed this anonymous function here. We don't need this extra bracket here because we are closing this bracket for this function here, right? And this curly brace is with this one, and this is the item, right? So there was an extra bracket here, so that's why the error was coming. Let's refresh the page once again, and now we see the output, right? Let's see the output for student 2. And now he has different subjects, right? And let's see the output for student 3, and he has the different subjects, right? So in this way you can use arrays and JavaScript code with EJS. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please rate, comment, subscribe, and bye for now.